Brad Benzing, County Commissioner.
Thanks, sir. Nice to be with you this evening as we ease into fall. So, first item I have for you is not necessarily a county commission item. However, as a county commissioner, I sit on a three-county community action agency board. I'm the commissioner representative to that body. And we run Head Start programs, community action agency that is. We run Head Start programs in 2 of the 3 counties. We don't do them in Lenawee. Lenawee has another organization that runs Head Start, Great Start Readiness over there. But we do in Jackson and Hillsdale counties. And just want to bring your attention because it does fall into one of the districts, particularly the North Adams School District. You're shaking your head, so we have suffered in Head Start programs, just like everybody else has, with lack of employees. And we have 6 classrooms in Jackson County and 1 classroom in Hillsdale County that are shut down for no other reason. We have a waiting list of students to get into those programs, but we don't have enough staff to run. And so we have 1 classroom shut down. That classroom is at Camden Frontier, which is actually the school district that I live in down in Woodbridge Township. But I did want to bring it to your attention. We did have some discussion at our board meeting. We meet as a board once a month. And we did have some discussion that the North Adams classroom, relatively low enrollment this year. And again, I'm seeing some confirmation from head shaking here. So there is some discussion of the possibility that that classroom, that they may actually combine that with the classroom in Jackson. And so those students would then be transported to that classroom there, and then that staff that helps run that classroom, that would help us staff up the other classroom within the county, and we can get that classroom. So my message to you all that live in the North Adams School District, if you have children or grandchildren who might be applicable to that Head Start program, we can get that enrollment built up, we can keep that classroom there. So just spread the word on that. And so you probably will hear about the decision faster than I will. Like I say, that as a board member, we only meet once a month, but I did want to bring it to your attention that at least there is some discussion about that. In our meeting tomorrow, we are going to receive title. We're going to pass a resolution to receive title to a piece of property over in Litchfield in their industrial park. A few years ago, when we hired a consulting engineer in regards to the future of public safety radio in Hillsdale County, they identified that we will need to build a new tower over in the Litchfield area. We actually have a tower there in the industrial park. We don't own the property underneath it, and that tower is not tall enough and suitable for radio system expansion. So we would have to build a new tower at that location. And the city of Litchfield has very graciously offered us 3 acres directly off of Herring Road in their industrial park that will be ours. And so if we, in the future, if we are able to move forward with that public safety radio improvement project, we will have a piece of land there for it. So tomorrow, we've done our due diligence on that. We had the property surveyed, so we know legally where our boundaries are at and had it staked. And we've also done an environmental study on that property. We just wanted to make sure, since it is next to the former power plant in the industrial park there, the sewage lagoons are reasonably close by. We just wanted to make sure we benchmarked that, if nothing else, keep that clean on the study. And so tomorrow we will have, under our consent agenda, a resolution for the county to accept ownership of that piece of property. To that, we still don't have a clear path of how we are going to pay for an 800 megahertz system here in Hillsdale County. And it's very, very clear. We have 2 very historic now, 55, 60-year-old former radio communication tower, radio telephone tower that we inherited from Frontier Communication, the one in Osseo, the one in Camden. We actually just had them inspected. They did pass the inspection. We were kind of crossing our fingers on that, hoping they would. And they did pass the inspection. They have to do that every 3 years by the FCC. But they did at least say that for another 3 years they're good to go. But the equipment on them, it's becoming more and more difficult to communicate. So I'm looking for some feedback from you, my constituents, if we should perhaps go back to next year in 2024, put that issue back on ballot. We'll have to rebid that project, get current numbers. When I say rebid it, we will definitely go with a Motorola system, which is a state system. and not get into the issues that they found over in Branch County. We're trying to patch and make it work with hybrid system. So, but we'll have to get some updated numbers so we know how much that would be. But like I say, I really would like to hear from you if that is the path we take. There really isn't any grant money. We've tried for earmarks within the state budget. State's still awash in a lot of money. However, as I've been pointed out by several different people, Hillsdale County's got the wrong zip code right now with the current makeup of the legislature to be recipients of any earmarks in the budget. So, but we will, moving forward, at some point that system we have right now is going to fail. We're going to have to replace it, so the sooner we can get to work on that. Number one, the lower the cost will be, because it costs more than it did a year ago, and it will cost more a year from now. So please reach out to me on that. Tomorrow we are going to have a discussion of the 2024 County Commissioners budget, because interestingly we have a 5-member board, and so that means if we have 3 of us in one place, we have a quorum on the Board of Commissioners. So what we do in our budgeting process within a county government, all the department heads, elected and appointed, they submit budgets to our budget committee and to our finance director, and then we have interviews with them. So the chair and the vice chair, Commissioner Leininger and Commissioner Engels, along with our finance chair, sit down with those department heads, go through their budgets, and basically make a presentation and try to sell the idea of why they need the dollars that they have requested in the budget. Unfortunately, we can't do that. Because if we have the chair or myself as vice chair of the Board of Commissioners, either one of us were to go meet with the budget committee, we would have a quorum of the Board of Commissioners. So we are actually going to have that discussion tomorrow in our open session at the Board of Commissioners meeting. Highlight to that is we have made a request within our budget this year. We did it also last year for a half-time position. Back in 2010, the Board of Commissioners had a full-time employee, and that individual left county government. And in 2010, we were in the depths of the Great Recession, and we elected not to refill that position. It was never refilled. It was kept in the budget through 2014, and then dropped out of it. So what we're looking at with the idea is one thing that's come out of our last, in 2017, strategic planning meeting, and also we are going through that process again. It's been 5 years since we've done that. We really need to have, because we're a company of about 130 full-time and close to 200 part-timers, and we have no HR department whatsoever in county government. So our thought is that position would be as an HR person, and they would also do some requisite services for the Board of Commissioners, because we really have no staff for the Board of Commissioners when they weren't involved in HR functions. So that will be an interesting discussion. Hopefully we can get that funded. I spoke to you several months ago how we were applying for a community corrections grant, and that's simply that community corrections would fill that space between the time a person is arrested and enters into the circuit court, so basically the high criminal court or felony court system, and supervise them up until the point where that individual was adjudicated. In other words, either that they pled to a crime, they were tried by a jury of their peers or bench trial with a judge, and then were sentenced. Up until the point of sentencing, they're the responsibility of the county, and so what this will do is it will provide supervision for those individuals as they move through that process. And the thought is that if we can start that and perhaps get them off into drug counseling and regular drug testing, employment counseling, try to get them a job, that hopefully we can, rather than sentence them to prison, which is very expensive and breaks up families and as a general rule doesn't always have the most positive incomes, we could perhaps try and have more probation type aspect once they were sentenced, if they are convicted, and we can keep them here in the community and try to get them back to be productive members of society. So this is being funded by the Department of Corrections, and so we actually have a public body called the Community Corrections Board, and so we were successful in that grant, and we will have our first meeting since we have received our funding, and that will be on September the 20th. It is open to the public because we are a public body. It meets at 5 p.m. It will be up in the circuit court courtroom. And the historic courthouse, so we'll make sure the doors are open because we do close our doors at 5 p.m. now to the public, but doors will be open that evening, so that if you were interested in attending that, this will really kind of be a kickoff of what we're going to be able to do, who we're going to be able to hire, and we'll continue to keep you informed on that as that process moves forward. Another thing that if you have not paid attention to in the MPA magazine, there are 4 bills in the legislature in regards to revising the state sanitary code. And currently in Michigan, if you have a septic tank, there is no requirement under state law for you to have regular and full inspections of that. There is no requirements whatsoever that you maintain it, pump it, whatever, and there's no requirements a change of ownership. Now, some local units of government, as part of the building codes, they do require inspections. So it does happen in certain places. On a statewide level, that does not happen. And so there have been bills introduced in the past that would, like many states, require every 5 years that you would have to have a certified inspector come out and inspect your septic system. And if there was a problem with it, you would have to fix it. If you did not fix it or unable to fix it, because sometimes that's very, very expensive, you could potentially have your house condemned by the health department. And so we see that there's potential that this could be very problematic, especially for our lower income and senior population, who might not have $22,000 or $24,000 flying around to pay for updating with a modern engineered septic system. So we're having some discussion. A number of the other county boards of commissioners have taken positions in opposition to that. And so we're having some discussion at the Hilton County Board of Commissioners whether we should as well go on record. We're a rural county with a relatively economic disadvantaged population, and definitely would be a hardship on a number of residents of our county. So I do have the bill numbers written down. They are House Bill 4479 and 4480, and Senate Bill 299 and Senate Bill 300. So that might be something that you wanted to look at as a township board and go on record whether opposed or supportive of that, and also then reach out to Representative Fink and Senator Bellino and go on record with them as well. Same thing with members of the public. So, and I will report to you if we do take a formal position on that. The last item that I have for you is about 2 years ago, I asked for you to again return me back to the Board of Commissioners. Commissioner terms are 2 years. And we will have to run for election again in 2024. So we've started that process. I do have my petitions, and if you would be interested in signing those petitions of support, I would be very, very honored to have you do that. I will be here for a little bit before I have to run off to ransom, but I will also bring it back next month, so that if you wanted to do that, or give me a call, and I will find you someplace and make sure that you can get that done for me. I really do appreciate that. It will be interesting because the legislature, they've now changed our terms to 4 years, so we will line up, same as township officials, same with the rest of the countywide, and we will be off of that calendar like the State House of Representatives and the U.S. House of Representatives, where every 2 years we have to stand in front of you and say, hey, we're still doing our job. And if we're doing our job effectively, hopefully you'll send us back for another term. So they'll be a little bit longer starting in 2025. Those will then, people will serve for 4 years through 2029. And that'll take me up to 7. So if you all honor me with returning back to the Board of Commissioners, I will have to scratch my head and think about that, anything beyond that point. So that concludes my report for the evening. Thank you very much. I'm delighted to answer your question.
I actually have one, if you don't
Yes,
mind. So you stated that the CAA, because of staffing, is potentially looking at pulling out North Adams and going back to Jackson.
Yep.
Has there been any talk about pulling out of Jackson and bringing into North Adams?
Have not heard that conversation at all.
Let me offer you.
Sell me that idea.
Let me sell you this idea. CAA Head Start program at Little Rams are great feeder programs to this community. So by, even though we're talking 4 or 5 students that would potentially be displaced up into Jackson, we're talking 4 or 5 students who eventually would become kindergartners. So I would really love, as you as a board member, to offer the idea of what if we came back here to North Adams for that one classroom. And I'm sure the school, because I'm sure the school would be willing to work on that if it's a money issue. We can probably work through that because those 4 or 5 students are huge into our kindergarten classrooms. So seeing more of our students move into bigger districts and be sucked into bigger districts is only going to hurt our area. So just food for thought.
That's a great idea.
Love to be part of that conversation.
Okay, very, very good. I have your card, and I'll pass it along to Toby's staff. And so thank you. Like I say, that's a fantastic idea, and I would be delighted to advocate for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a question.
Yes.
Same topics. You say Camden shut down the CAA?
They have what? They have 2 classrooms here. So they've got a modular building, and they've got 2 classrooms in that. And one of those 2 classrooms is shut down. That's the one in the
And
county.
CAA doesn't offer transportation,
We do have buses, so
but do they transport?
yeah.
And how many workers does it take to fill a classroom?
I believe it takes like 3, and perhaps you might be a little better.
We have 2.
Okay, 2. Okay, because I know you have a teacher. Teacher has to have a bachelor's degree in early childhood education, and there is a waiver program where you can be working on that. You don't have to yet have completed that credential, but you have to be working on it. And then there's a classroom A. So I wasn't sure if there was 1 or 2 classroom A's.
We had 3 and we took 1.
Okay, so normally they would rush to 3. And I just think of occasionally, as Brad's clients, because they have refrigerators for their milk and things like that, occasionally we'll be in those classrooms fixing a refrigerator. So, and I was thinking they had 3, but so 2 makes sense. Especially with smaller, I don't know what the ratio. There may be a number where if you're above certain number of students, you have to have a second aide in the classroom. So
Gail has.
I just had a comment about the septics.
yes.
I don't know about the 5 years, but anybody that sells their home, they should have to have inspected. I'll tell you about Jerry and Jay. This lady saved every cent to buy this home. Never had anything checked. She didn't know she was a single woman. And then she went in and right away the septic failed. And they went over to pump it and she was just crying and crying. Well, she had no money to put in a new one. So I really think, and I know it sounds bad because you're the septic. No, it's not. It's to save the people. So they really, when they sell it, they should have to have their well and septic inspected. But I don't know about the 5-year thing. I don't know.
Okay.
Very good.
Yes, sir.
I do know a lot of the banks and everything are requiring inspection, septic inspection,
Right.
before they get the money.
Right. And that would be true, going right back to that, probably anybody who doesn't spend a couple $100 on a certified home inspector, go through the place and give them a report and, do that same due diligence on, anything from the electrical entrance to the furnace. I mean, any of those other big ticket things. The question becomes, is that something we want government to tell us to do, or we as informed consumers be the ones to make the decision? And I will always lean on the side of that probably something that we as individuals should do and not have the governing entities telling us.
I know you know Big Ann had to get her tank pumped every 4 years or they can't get a permit to put their boat on the water.
Right.
So, I mean,
That's why I didn't set up.
I don't know that 5-year thing either.
yeah, I think by years, I think it should be up to each individual township and that.
Right, and townships do have, local units of government do have the opportunity, some health departments have requirements. We do not do that in our 3 county health department. Anyone else?
I'd like to hear an update on where we stand exactly financially on the courthouse, what the costs are, and if there's any proposed beyond an already agreed upon price.
So at our last meeting, I think it was the 22nd of August, we did approve a change order of up to $500,000. I believe that brings us up to about $11,500,000. I would have to go back and double check my notes on that, Mark, to be certain. But we're about at that point. Of that, about $8 million of it is being paid for with American Recovery Plan dollars. We did take some of the additional, the $8.8 million that we received in our funds. We did use some of those to upgrade the heating and cooling out at the front of the court building. We've done a couple other smaller projects, but about $8 million of that. We are going to be borrowing from the building inspection fund about $2 million, which we can do that with interdepartmental or interfund loans. That pool of money is kind of interesting in that it can only be used for, we can't put it in the general fund, so we can't just transfer it and use it. It has to be used for building inspection related. So we pay salaries out of that fund. We buy the vehicles for the building inspection department whenever they need, because they have great big plotters for doing prints and things like very expensive equipment. We use those dollars in that fund. But we've got a pretty good accumulation, about $2.5 million, I believe, from what I'm hearing from our budget. So we could borrow $2 million from it and not hurt that fund at all. And so that will be where we will be making it up. We did a very similar thing with the county office building. So basically they came back, the Renaissance, the contractor in the building, they wanted a very broad, from a $500,000 to $1 million change order. We said we don't have an additional $1 million. And so the other component of that is in that initial bid that we approved, just like any bid, there's a 10% contingency, and we haven't eaten significantly into that 10%. So initially it was a $10 million project, so there's a $1 million contingency. We haven't eaten significantly into that. So between the money that we just approved and the contingency, at least at this point, the discussion might be that we may have to stop with the roof line. I brought that point up previously, and the counterpoint to that is we have a very expensive scaffolding system on the outside of that. That scaffolding is hundreds of thousands of dollars in rental fees and rigging. And so we don't want to have to come back. One of the questions I asked is can you do that with a skylift? The stuff that's below the eaves, and the contractor was kind of like, we really working with those big blocks of stone. We don't know that would be the best manner of doing that. But we may, very honestly, if we run out, because the well is dry, we have no additional dollar. I mean, there are other borrowing, but you got to pay it back. So the good news is Hilltop County, we don't have a lot of debt. The bad news is we don't really have income where we would be going out. I mean, I'd like to have a new truck. My truck's got 277,000 miles on it. It's a 2010, and I'd like to have a new truck, but they're about $60,000, and Branson Appliance doesn't make enough money to make a $1,000 truck payment. So same deal with the county. We have to live within our means. So did that answer your question?
Quite sufficiently, are your intentions right now from the first roof up to do everything that needs? Because certainly that would cost the most for scaffolding.
Yeah, that basically would be the break point, is that we'll come down, we'll do the new eaves troughs, because those eaves troughs are like a foot wide, and they're all fabricated out of copper. So we'll definitely be able to get that far, and then we'll have to see, and all the windows will be done too, that's part of the project.
Thank you, Commissioner.
You're welcome, thank you. Anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you.